Hey guys, so today we're going to talk about lesson 4.7, which is on inverse functions. And so again, you're going to have little bitmojis. We're going to do something a little different today. We're going to take notes like usual on vocab, and then we're actually going to practice using a Khan Academy lesson. So the first thing, the skills we're working on today, we're still working with that one ACED2, where we're creating equations in two or more variables to represent relationships. But now we're adding on the skill of solving an equation of the form f of x equals c for a simple function f that has an inverse and writing an expression for the inverse. So that's that big idea of inverse functions today. Our first vocabulary term is the idea of an inverse relation. The inverse of any relation is obtained by switching the coordinates in each ordered pair. So we need to write that vocab term in our notes. But if I look at that key concept box here, when we're talking about a relation with the element AB, then the inverse is the element BA. So what we're doing is we're swapping spots. In function for A, when I put in a value of -3, I get out a value of -16. But with my inverse, I put in 16 and I get out -3. So they're kind of like opposites. They're undoing each other. And we do that with an inverse function. So to create that idea of my inverse relation, I can use the inverse function. That's a function that's going to reverse the function. So the symbol that we need here is this idea of f to the power of -1x. This is the inverse. The way I would say that is the inverse of f of x. So for f of x and the inverse of f of x, the domain and range values are switched. So if my domain for f of x leads to my range, it maps onto my range, the inverse is the opposite. Those values in the data set for range are going to map backwards onto my domain. The other idea to throw in is that the graph of f of x, the graph of the function f of x is reflected over the line y of x to create the graph of the function, the inverse function. It's a lot of words. I want you to write them in your notes, and then when we watch the video, it'll make a little more sense. It'll show you a visual representation of what we mean. The other thing I want you to write down these key concepts, the steps to find the inverse. I'd like you to write them this way because this is the way that your textbook does it, but the Khan Academy video shows it a slightly different way. It has you swap two of the steps. Write these ones down, we'll watch the video, and then I'll do an example where I show you both the way that Khan Academy does it and the way that your textbook does it. When you have the two vocab terms and these 4 steps written, head on to the next idea. Pause if you need to. So now what we're going to do is we're going to explore with Khan Academy. We're going to use, I really like the activity they have for this lesson. So we are going to head over to Khan Academy by going to tinyurl.com/khaninverse. Now, some computers don't like tinyurls. Tinyurl is just a URL shortener. If that doesn't work when you type it into your browser, you can find the video by typing in Khan Academy Intro to Inverse Functions and click on the Khan Academy link that pops up. It might give you an option to click on a YouTube link that has just that first video, but I want you to make sure you're actually in the activity. The activity should look something like this. Your page, when you open it up, it'll have a video, it'll have a bunch of stuff on the side here. If you have a Khan Academy account, you can log in. If you want to make an account, you can make one. If you do, I suggest you use your school email and your student ID number as a password. But this is not a graded activity. There's no class to join. This is for you. And this is something that you may want to come back to for other lessons. If it doesn't make sense when I explain it in class or in the video, you can head over to Khan Academy and listen to a different way of explaining. The beautiful thing about math is that math is math, and there's lots of different ways to explain these concepts. As long as you can find a way that works for you, I'm okay with it. You need to be able to show your work, but there are lots of ways to solve these problems. So, first thing you're going to do on this site here is actually, I'm going to link it directly. We are going to watch that intro video. So your job now is to watch that first video, Intro to Inverse Functions. I was hoping to have it embedded into the video here, but it wasn't working. The sound quality wasn't working. So what you need to do now is pause this video, head over to Khan Academy and watch that first Intro to Inverse Functions video, that first linked part here. When you're done, head back to this YouTube video so that I can walk you through the next few steps. Pause now and go watch this video. So let's just do a little quick think about how our textbook compared to the way Khan Academy finds the inverse. So in Khan Academy, we're going to use a different function here. We'll talk about the function f of x equals, let's say, 3x minus 6 this time. We'll start with this idea. Well, Khan Academy, the first thing they do is, now we're talking about it, if y equals 3x minus 6. And the next thing we want to do is we want to get x all by itself. So we're going to add 6 to both sides, and I get y plus 6 equals 3x. Then I'm going to divide by 3, and I get 1/3 y plus, well, 6 over 3 gives me 2, equals x. Now I know that my input and output have been switched around. So this idea here, I'm going to now turn into my inverse of x is going to give me that idea of 1/3 times x plus 2. So they wait to the last step there to switch those two around. Well, now in the textbook, we're going to walk through that same idea. We're going to start with that same function, f of x equals 3x minus 6. And we're going to follow step 1. We're going to place f of x with y in the equation. That step is the same as in Khan Academy. But then your textbook has you interchange x and y to start us off. So what we're going to do is now we're going to turn this into x equals 3y minus 6. And we're going to shuffle around to get y all by itself. When I do that, I get x plus 6 equals 3y. And I divide by 3, and I get 1/3 x plus 2 is going to equal y. Well, this new idea for y is really that inverse. So it's f of x, the inverse of f of x. Either way works, whichever way works best for you. I like the textbook way of doing it, where we swap it out and we know we're solving for the inverse. But there may be some use for you if you want to shuffle it around, solve for x first, and know that that really is the inverse. Either way works. We get to the same answer. We still get 1/3 x plus 2 is our inverse function. So now your job is to go back to Khan Academy. You can pause this video here, or we're mostly done with it. I'm just going to show the homework on the next slide. I want you to complete the remaining activities through Khan Academy before you start the homework. This part here, especially, and this part here, they give you that instant feedback on whether or not you're getting this right. Because this is one of those lessons that I could see students getting stuck doing an entire assignment wrong and then getting lost. So make sure that you complete these. The videos are great. Watch the videos. There's nothing you need to write down. They do go more in depth than what you're expected to know in the 8th grade. You want to focus when he's talking about linear functions. But do the practice problems, and then when you're ready, you can head on to the homework. Homework task is from page 267, numbers 1 through 7, 20, 28 through 31, and 36. This is due on Monday. Thanks, guys.